To start off, body image is defined as how an individual perceives their own body. This has become a growing issue in our society as the ideal body has fluctuated and changed drastically over the years. Today, our society places a major emphasis on appearance and beauty, promoting unrealistic images that are far different from what they used to be.
For example, in the past, one size was a representation of their wealth. The heavier one was, the more money they had. Women's lack of rights then changed that view, and women began to give up their physical features to look more like men, thinner and more lean. Next came media, top models, dieting ads, Photoshop, and others that have all served as initial catalysts in this top-down kind of change. All of these have influenced people's mindsets, creating a constant change in what we as individuals view as the perfect body and what we strive for.
Nowadays, approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies, and the number continues to grow, as this is the story of how change happens. Beginning in 1910, it was all about the Gibson girl look. The pouty, curvy woman who personified beauty portrayed by the illustrations of Charles Dana Gibson. Her physique was tall and slender, but with a big bosom and large hips, essentially an S-shaped body achieved by wearing a super cinched corset.
The 1920s. Say goodbye to monumental curves, status quo height, fussy updos, and all that jazz, and hello to the flapper. Unlike the frozen beauty of the decade before, the flapper is constantly in motion. The exaggerated curves of Gibson are gone and replaced with small bust and hips. Margaret Gorman, crowned as the first Miss America in 1921, was the era's ideal. Her 5'1", 108-pound frame was a full 180 from the Gibson era.
1930s. Following the stock market crash, as spirits slipped down, so do hemlines, and the flat-chested look that was so popular in the 1920s gives way to a small bust line. Through the media, curves seeped their way back into fashion, and women dared to bare their shoulders, making this era a stepping stone from the streamlined, petite look of the 1920s toward the curvier 1940s.
The 1940s. Thanks to World War II, military shoulders, broad, boxy, and aggressive, became the look. A long-limbed, taller, and squarer silhouette was what came to be popular. However, not to be fooled with Rosie the Riveter, the ideal body type still did not include flexing biceps. But it did become taller and more commanding, possibly echoing women's expanding role in the workforce while men were on the battlefield.
1950s. After the war era, a soft, curvy body was prized above all else. As of the time, even advised skinny women to take weight gain supplements like Weight On to fill out their curves. Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor were key leaders of this bigger is better movement.
The 1960s. The swinging 60s brings the pendulum back in the other direction. Thin is in. Models like Twiggy and Jean Shrimpton, aka the Shrimp, represented a new ideal. Doll-faced, super slender, and petite. Women went girdle-free so that the once slim and flat-stomached look must be achieved through diet.
1970s. While this decade was a raging party, the party girl of the day was still pressured to maintain a slim-hipped, flat-stomached body in order to rock these fashions. The overall look remains lean, especially in the torso, with wider shoulders and thinner hips. Farrah Fawcett posed as the ideal body of the time.
The 1980s. The supermodel. These tall, leggy women come to represent the new feminine ideal. Women like Elle Macpherson, Naomi Campbell, and Linda Evangelista lead the stampede off the runway and into the heart of pop culture. The 80s also ushered in an era of fitness thanks to a pioneering Jane Fonda. Aerobics and jogging took off, and for the first time, muscles were acceptable and desirable on women. It was both empowering and discouraging, but one more beauty standard to add to a lengthening list.
1990s. The 90s saw grunge hit the mainstream, and a thin, androgynous style hit the runway. The ideal body type of the time was small and slim-framed. Kate Moss and Jodie Kidd led the trend for the heroin chic look.
The 2000s. Supermodel Gisele Bündchen is credited with ending the era of the heroin chick. Gone is the pale, gaunt, glass-eyed look of the 90s, and now we enter an era of visible abs and airbrushed tans.
2010s. The media has completely taken over and began idolizing celebrities such as Kim Kardashian and Nicki Minaj for their wide hips and curvy frames. People now force themselves into waist trainers to obtain a thin waist with a large bust and hips.
Society has reacted to this issue in very predictable but dangerous ways. As we can see, the ideal body image we mentioned in the beginning has become more unreasonable over the years. This issue is headed in a downward spiral, and more people are becoming at blame without even knowing. Supporting dieting fads, striving for that photoshopped model body, and supporting businesses that only sell the smallest of clothes and claim that one size fits all are all actions that allow this change to thrive. Our society has become unaware of the issue at hand and has accepted this long-term change.
In the future, we predict that the issue has the potential to go both ways. The health and diet industries are continuing to grow and gain popularity, while on the other side of the spectrum, companies such as Dove and Aerie work to campaign positive body image and acceptance. We recommend that individuals become more aware of this topic and that they stand up against industries idolizing one look over another.
Through this project, we have come to see the ways in which we as individuals are manipulated to change ourselves in order to fit in with the changes in trend. We were able to see the drastic differences from era to era, and in the end, come to a conclusion that no one body type is any better than another. We have learned that in the grand scheme of things, each one of us has a huge impact on the progress of change, and along with that, we have learned that change might not always go in the right direction, but it's also never too late to reverse it.